What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is Lineman Life Live. I'm your observant lineman here, Uche Nwaneri. Appreciate you guys for hanging in there and waiting on me to start this thing up. But obviously, we got to talk Jaguars here, folks. We got to talk Jaguars here. There's a bombshell report that just dropped, multiple reports. But our main one here from NFL.com, Tom Pelissero has dropped this look into what can only be called a freaking crisis in Jacksonville of the highest order. We are talking about a situation where a 2-10 team is clearly falling to the bits because of the incompetence of one Urban Meyer. But I do, again, want to say thanks for everybody who was waiting for this stream to start. See you guys in the chat. You guys are awesome. Appreciate you very much. This is a situation that honestly, I've lived through it. I've actually lived through this kind of scenario with the Jacksonville Jaguars. This almost feels like history repeating itself to a certain extent, but we're going to go through this article and I'm just going to give you guys my perspective on, how these things really affect the locker room, because at the end of the day, as a former player, as someone who has been in these kinds of situations, I feel like there's a little bit that I can add to this that will give a unique look, a unique peek behind the curtain in regards to the red flags that have been revealing themselves for months leading up to the NFL season. And generally speaking, just provide you guys with a little bit more context to make this all make as much sense as possible, because really this doesn't make much sense at all if you ask me. So there are things that as players you notice immediately when dealing with new personnel, dealing with new coaching staff. And these are things that, for the most part, give players just either give players the confidence to get behind what a coach is trying to create with the culture of a team, or they actually will kind of put players in a position where they know that things are not going to go quite how you would hope. So let's go into this article. 1 second here while I pull up my live stream on the right here. Okay. We got a $2 super chat from Mark Brennan. Mark Brennan, what's up, man? He says, is Meyer done as coach even at the college level? Well, honestly, can't really speak for the college level to a certain extent, but I would assume that no, this doesn't necessarily mean the end for colleges, because it's a different kind of ecosystem in college. And in college, where you can bury stories, where you can kind of form the narrative the way that you feel, they would be able to sweep a lot of these issues with Urban Meyer under the rug, and it would not necessarily impact him as a recruiter, because as we all know, this is where he has the majority of his influence in college is as a recruiter. But I think that one thing the NFL has shown, and one thing the NFL is known to expose, is fraudulent coaches, like fraudulent coaching. And I think that this has kind of exposed the fraud that Urban Meyer is as a true football coach, as a tactical coach, as a coach who can dissect the X's and O's and actually provide you with a legitimate process for building the culture of a football team. I don't think that he is a culture builder. I don't think that he is even, in the slightest a strategist when it comes to football. I honestly don't believe that Urban Meyer knows football. I believe he has used the success that he's had and the influence that he's had to pretty much set himself up as a what do you call these guys that speak in these seminars about self-help and being the best version of yourself. He is one of those. He's one of those talkers who can talk in generalities about things that allow people to improve as men, quote unquote, in football. But let's go into this article here. It says tension boiling over between Coach Urban Meyer, Jaguars players, and staff amid a 2-10 start. I tell you what, I've been 2-10 before. One time in my career, it was with a coach by the name of Mike Mularkey. That guy had a 4-year contract. He was fired after one. But let's go into this article. It says months of tension surrounding Jaguars coach Urban Meyer has boiled over with multiple run-ins with players and coaches in recent weeks. Sources say renewing questions in the league circles about whether Meyer's stay in Jacksonville could end after just one tumultuous season. At this point, there are no signs Jaguars owner Shad Khan is seriously considering a change. One of the NFL's most patient and supportive owners, which at this point, I'm willing to replace the word patient and supportive with naive and let's say enabling to a certain extent. Khan dreamed for years of Meyer, and this is coming from someone that I've spoken to directly in touch with the Jaguars organization. Shad Khan has a man crush on Urban Meyer. That is the word that I was given months ago. That was the phrase that I was given months ago. Urban Meyer has a man crush. Shad Khan has a man crush on Urban Meyer. This is why you're going to see Urban Meyer survive to the end of the season and possibly get another season. But this is where the biggest folly would come in the ownership of Jacksonville, is to allow someone who has shown that they do not know how to build culture, someone that has shown that they do not know how to motivate men, and someone that has shown that he is not accountable for anything in the negative that has to do with him and this franchise. That would be the biggest mistake in allowing someone who has shown all of these tendencies to remain the head coach of your franchise. But let's keep going. Let's see. Khan dreamed for years of Meyer, a 3-time college national champion at Florida and Ohio State, coaching his team and overhauling the culture of a franchise accustomed to losing before finally luring him out of retirement in January. A spokesperson for Khan declined to comment for the story. But sources say Meyer's repeated public comments shifting blame to players and coaches. Where's your accountability, sir? Amid the team's 2-10 season have exacerbated frustration in the building with his hard-charging and sometimes condescending approach, a style that many observers believe wouldn't work in the NFL even before the Jaguars hired him. I believe I said that multiple times. Entering Sunday's visit to Tennessee, the Jaguars have lost 4 games in a row and 5 out of 6 since their Week 7 bye, averaging just 10.7 points per game in that span. That is unbelievably bad. That's actually like that is I don't even know if that is unheard of to me personally. But it says here, one of their best players, running back James Robinson, was benched last week under clouded circumstances. Franchise quarterback Trevor Lawrence, who has shown flashes of why Jacksonville selected him number 1 overall in April's draft, is completing just 58% of his passes for 2,500 yards with 9 touchdowns, 10 picks. Terrible. And look, I honestly, personally give Trevor Lawrence a complete pass. I truly give the players, if I'm being honest, a pass on how this season has gone, because you have not been set up to be successful in any way. You do not have the tools nor the leadership and guidance to be even remotely successful in this league. Now, the players have shown flashes of being able to competently compete on the field when given a good, fair opportunity to do so by the coaches. That game, obviously, we're talking about, the Buffalo game. We're talking about what was the first win? I don't even remember who the first win was against. Forgive me, but it's been a while. But that quality win, the biggest quality win that they've had in Jacksonville has been the win against the Buffalo Bills. Now that was a 9-6 win. One could say that is the 1 out of 100 times that they probably would have won a game in that way, but it happened. It's a quality win, and you saw defensive effort at the least that was, a competent, strong effort to beat the Bills. So there are players on the team who can provide the ability, who can provide the leadership to go out and have good competitive games. That we've seen. What we have not seen is the ability for the coaches to actually formulate a strategy to consistently be able to put points on the board as an offense, to show that there is self-awareness within this franchise, because right now there's none. Let's keep going here. Says, let's see, where was I? Right. Okay. Entering Sunday's visit to Tennessee, the Jaguars have lost. Okay, we got there 10.7 games. One of their best players, running back James Robinson, was benched last week under clouded circumstances. Franchise quarterback, 10 interceptions. Okay, we got that. Okay, here we are. Right here. And while the Jaguars opted not to fire Meyer in September after he stayed in Ohio instead of taking the team plane home after a Week 4 loss to the Bengals, only to be captured in viral videos at a bar with a young woman who's not his wife dancing close to his lap, sources say Meyer hasn't adjusted his approach. So he's learned nothing. In the past 2 weeks alone, sources say receiver Marvin Jones, one of the locker room's most respected and mild-mannered veterans, became so angry with Meyer's public and private criticism of the receiver group that he left the facility until other staff members convinced him to come back and had a heated argument with Meyer during practice. I would pay money to see if somebody filmed that. Let's see here. During a staff meeting, Meyer delivered a biting message that he's a winner and his assistant coaches are losers. According to several people informed of the contents of the meeting, challenging each coach individually to explain when they've ever won and forcing them to defend their resumes. Motherfucker, you hired them. You hired them, bro. What the fuck are you talking about? You hired them. You did your due diligence. These were people you knew. You brought in your good old boys. And now you want to sit there and be condescending to them, and you want to sit there and you want to tell them to prove to you that they're winners. Urban, this is not how the professional football works. This is not how professional football is handled. This is not a dick measuring contest. There is no team when you don't have collective buy-in to what you're trying to build. And you can't build when you are constantly trying to belittle and tear down your players and coaches. You just look like an asshole. And that's what he looks like. That's what he has looked like through the course of this season. And this is the thing. The NFL will expose that because it's hard to win in the NFL. It's hard to win a game. So if you can't get a solid staff, if you can't get people on the same page, if you can't have a well thought out game plan, if you can't have your players buy into the culture, then you have nothing. And, this was one of the biggest questions, I think, when you talk about Urban Meyer coming from college to the NFL. It was, how is he going to handle losing? Because you will lose in the NFL. This is not college. There's no recruiting classes. You have to build. You have to build based on what you want your team to be, based on the identity that you have set for your team to take hold of. And that's a much more difficult thing than tricking young kids, convincing young kids who are highly sought after recruits to join your football program. These are two completely different concepts of managing a team altogether. And he has not shown the ability to do that in the slightest. He doesn't even have the awareness to understand what he has already in the team that he's fielding. But let's continue. Contrary to his public statements that it was injury-related, Meyer ordered Robinson's benching after an opening drive fumble in last week's 37-7 road loss to the Rams. When then had running backs coach Bernie Parmalee, which I feel like he's been in Jacksonville before. Coach Parmalee, I feel like he was in Jacksonville before. So if in the chat, if you know, I feel like Coach Parmalee was with us when we had Gus Bradley as our head coach. If I'm remembering correctly, he was the running backs coach. I'm not, but maybe somebody in the chat, one of the Jag fans in the chat can kind of check that out for me. I'm not sure. Let me know in the chat. But it says here, then had running backs coach Bernie Parmalee stop Robinson from re-entering the game, insisting Carlos Hyde, who played for Meyer at Ohio State, there's your connection right there, stay in. Only after Lawrence questioned Meyer on the sideline about Robinson's absence was Robinson allowed to return late in the second quarter. And I'm going to pause right here on this article because I want to actually talk about that. Urban Meyer is a liar. I think we can all see and understand and agree to that. He is a liar when it comes to answering questions in regard to this situation. Not only this situation, but also the situation back in week 4 when they lost to the Bengals in Cincinnati, and he stayed in Ohio to get his grind on. The grinder situation is what we'll call it. But let's take a look here. And I wanted to bring this up because I think that this is quite damning and just kind of proving the fact that this guy is not fit to be an NFL coach. He is a liar. He is a fraudulent in regards to his set of principles that he claims are essential to him as a coach. And one of those main principles that he has put out there has been his quote and the mantra of the Jaguars for the 2021 season: own it. Own it. He has yet to show that he is willing to own and be accountable for the results that his team has put out on a week-to-week basis. He has shown that that he is not willing to own it when he is caught in compromising situations in regards to him staying in Ohio and not flying back with his football team, which to me is a cardinal sin, of which the NFL does not look very positively on when it comes to a culture for an NFL franchise. This is something that no player has ever heard of, a coach not flying back with their team. That just does not happen. But let's look at this exchange between reporters in Jacksonville post-game, after this Rams game, and the reality of what actually happened. Because there's a stark contrast between what Urban Meyer is saying and what actually is reality. Let's take a look here. It says this was the entire post-game exchange between Meyer and reporters. James fumbles again, and I think he was out for 20 plays. Did you bench him after the second fumble? Urban Meyer. This is what he says. He's still not 100%. He's not practicing during the week. James is a good guy, a tough guy, team player as you've got that I've ever been around. Generalities. This is a general statement you can literally plug and play into any situation about any player at any time. This does not take you being an acute football coach to be able to provide this basic answer, which is really nothing more than a word salad. It doesn't really mean anything. He's just talking. Your heart bleeds for the guy. Another general statement. Another sugar-coated line. Your heart bleeds for the guy just because he's not able to do what he does well. He hasn't been that way since Seattle. He's not able to practice, but he wants to play, and he's still a very good player. You just got to take care of the ball. This is not what Urban Meyer was saying after all of this. But let's keep going. Do you think you're better off sitting him? Meyer, we had that conversation as a staff, and everybody felt that he was the best option right now, even not 100%. Okay, so what I understand here, if we're just taking this and compartmentalizing it, he is saying that James Robinson is the best option at running back. Even if he's hurt, he's still the best option, which is a complete contrast to what actually we're seeing on the field there. But let's keep going here. So he wasn't hurt after the fumble. He'd still be back in. Oh, sure. So he's saying here, he's running with the notion that James Robinson was hurt, and that's why he didn't go back in the game. He came right back in afterwards. It was 3 possessions before he got back on the field. Meyer, yeah, we were just giving Carlos an opportunity, and then obviously we failed there as well, or the ball went on the ground. Carlos also had a fumble late in the game too, back on the field the next drive. I'm just wondering if it wasn't a benching, it was just all on the health of Robinson. And now this is the question that kind of follows up the notion of him being injured, because with him, you had 20 plays before James Robinson was back on the field. While with Carlos Hyde, you had 1 series and he was back on the field, which could have easily been at least 1 play. If there was a turnover, then that would make it 1 play, or it could have been a 3 and out, which, you're looking anywhere from between 1 and 3 plays. He was out of the game and then back in after he fumbled. So not being treated the same way between Carlos Hyde, who was coached by Urban Meyer in college, and James Robinson. So again, it says here, he came right back in afterwards. It was 3 possessions before Robinson got back on the field. And then he says, yeah, we were giving Carlos Hyde an opportunity, and then he failed. And then they asked, Carlos also had the fumble late in the game too, back on the field the next drive. I'm just wondering if it wasn't a benching, it was just all health with Robinson. You'd have to ask running back coach Coach Parmalee. I don't get too involved. I don't micromanage that. I know he's been dinged up, so I don't know if he's back with the tent or what's going on, but I know there's injury involved. So he has thrown his coach under the bus. Ask him. I don't know. Ask him. I don't know what's going on. Ask Coach Parmalee. But last I heard, he was injured, so maybe that has something to do with it. But I don't manage that. I don't manage the coaches like that. So what are you doing here? What is your job as the head coach, if not to manage your coaching staff, and through your coaching staff, manage your players? You, as the head coach, have to understand everything about your team. You have to know how all the pieces fit together. You have to know how the game plan fits together. You have to understand the game. You got to. He failed miserably in that. Okay, so let's finish up this exchange here. Is that Parmalee's call or Darrell Bevel's call, putting him back in based on injury? Meyer, well, James is unique because he's fighting injury. That doesn't even make sense. He's unique because he's fighting injury. Newsflash. This is week 13 in the NFL. Everybody is playing injured. Everybody's playing hurt. Injury is different. But everyone is hurt. Everyone is not 100%. No one is 100%. Not one player that goes out on that field is 100% at this point in the season. So, no, it's not unique that he's fighting an injury. He is one of many players who are playing injured on Sundays. But it says here, if someone is not producing and you sit him down, that's a whole different conversation. But this is really injury based. So sum things up. Urban Meyer has thrown his coach, his running back coach, Coach Parmalee, under the bus. And on top of that, he is claiming that James Robinson was sat down because of injury. Now, let's go back here. And you know what? Let me just actually to kind of wrap that up. Let me just go into this part here. And this is kind of a spin. This is a report that's spinning from this NFL article here. So they're really talking about the same thing because this is referring to Pelissero's report. According to Pelissero's report, it was absolutely Meyer's decision and it was not injury related. It was not injury related. Urban Meyer doesn't like James Robinson as his running back. He just doesn't. And look, hey, that's nothing new in the NFL. There are coaches who come in, take over a franchise, and they don't necessarily vibe with all the players. That's this is something that happens. It's not ideal, but it's something that happens. But if you don't vibe with the player, and there's a difference between not vibing with the player and necessarily not having the greatest relationship with them, but still recognizing that is your best player. Like, he got to be on the field. But when you actually take that personal dislike for an individual and then convert that over and transition that over onto the field where you are actively hurting your team's chances of being successful because of your personal vendetta against an individual, you are now a detriment to the team. You are a detriment to the team. And that is something to me, honestly, that feels like some bullshit a college coach would do because he has the power to do that, not because it's actually the right thing to do. And he's playing favorites by putting in a guy that he's coached before instead of putting in a guy who's actually the best player, if not the best, one of the two best players on your team, on the offense, definitely. And now you're actively working against your own best interests as a franchise. And that, to me, is unforgivable. You can't do that because now we can't trust you to do what is right for the franchise. That's how I look at it. What do you guys think? As I'm looking at the chat here, you guys got a lot of stuff y'all talking about here. A lot of good chatting here. I like it. Yeah. Love seeing the chat move. Uche, would you ever go back to be a line coach in Jax? Yeah, I would. If they wanted to give me the O-line coaching job, I could do that. I could do that. I've done consulting for a few years for offensive game planning and offensive line coaching, drills, philosophy. I understand the X's and O's like the back of my hand. I had great teachers in that regard. So I was able to, over the course of my career, learn the game on a different level. And it's, you have to understand the game on a different level to be able to actually have success. You have to know football from a strategic, philosophical standpoint to be able to be successful. And again, when you look at Urban Meyer and what he's done, you can only judge the coach on what he's done up to this point. And I don't even know if an F is quite a grade that works when you talk about this, because an F is a fail, but I feel like he's gone past the point of failure even, that we're even past that because he has lied repeatedly. He's been a liar about the truth behind decisions being made on the team. But let me see. Let's keep going. Let's see. Okay. Let me find the spot where I was at. Okay. Here we go. Let's start right here. Several Jaguars players vented their frustration to Rams players. Holy shit. Whoa. Whoa. Several Jaguars players vented their frustrations to Rams players after the game. Oh my God. That is huge. That's huge. Okay, so as a former player, I can tell you this right now. If I have to complain to the other team after they just got done kicking our ass about how unbelievably bad our coaching and our head coach is, then the locker room is lost completely. It's gone. You have nothing. You have zero. You have zero as a head coach in terms of equity with your players. None. Because now they have decided they're going to explain, and even players on the Rams, I'm sure, were probably quite taken aback by this, because I don't never talk to a player about how bad the situation is with the team I'm on. Even when we had Gus Bradley, we started the season like 0-8 before we got our first win. Even with Mike Mularkey, who we went 2-14 with. I never talked, and Mike Mularkey was bad. He was fucking, like, I partially blame Mike Mularkey for my knee injury. But this is not something that you communicate to other players on other teams, just because it's like, that's not going to do anything. That's not really giving any. It's not giving you any like relief, but I think that in this situation, if they're venting their frustrations with Rams players, with other players, then they literally have had it, and they have no other way to express what they're going through to kind of get it off their chest, because this does cause a lot of stress with players themselves. Again, I've been through this shit. And when I was in Jacksonville and we had Mike Mularkey as our head coach, I was depressed the entire season. One, because I had an injury that was not being fucking like paid attention to at all by the coaching staff. My right leg was twice the size of my left leg. And, I was having to like be drugged every week to be able to play in games because I couldn't play otherwise. My knee was in that bad a shape. And the only thing I was told is it's not going to get worse. It's not going to get worse. So let's just try and manage the pain. And I'm like, bruh, if a running back had the injury I had, they'd be done for the season. Why the fuck am I still out here playing? And I'm not complaining to them in this whole time. But in my head, that's what I feel. I'm like, why the fuck am I playing? Why am I practicing? Why am I like, I have not missed a practice. They have not rolled back my practice time so that I can like at least try to get some recovery. I'm practicing every practice. I'm playing every game, and I'm constantly drugged. Like, I literally have anti-inflammatory pills in my backpack, and I got a box of vials to take Toradol shots before games because I cannot play otherwise. We went to Buffalo one week, and we played against the Bills, and they did not bring my Toradol. So I was literally sitting there at the locker arguing with team trainers that I'm not going to play because I can't play if I have to like literally feel this unbearable pain every time I get into a pass set, because that's what hurt. That's when the bone touched bone, is when I did pass sets. So I like loaded myself up with anti-inflammatory pills to be able to play that game. And it was not a comfortable game to play. It was like my stomach was destroyed by these anti-inflammatory pills. But it was the only way I could play. So I did it. Which now I regret that. I would have literally not played that season. I would have just refused to play if it was today. You know what I mean? But venting to other players is probably, that might be the biggest red flag of all, in my opinion. So, but do me a favor, guys. I see we got a good amount of people in here. Make sure you smash that like button. Smash that like button for your boy. And if you got a question that you want to drop in there, you want to support the channel, throw a little super chat in there, hey, do that as well. But we're going to keep going here with this article, and I'll continue to give you guys my perspective as we go. So, several Jaguars players vented their frustration to Rams players after that game. Sources say, reiterating a common complaint that Meyer, who had no prior NFL experience, doesn't treat them like adults. And the staff meeting follows a pattern of tense interactions between Meyer and his assistants dating back to the offseason. After opening the preseason with consecutive losses, for instance, sources say Meyer informed assistants that he was sick of being embarrassed. And if the team didn't start winning immediately, some of them wouldn't be around for a second year. Urban, you hired that staff. That's number one. Number two, what the fuck do you think this is? This is the preseason. Embarrassed? Motherfucker, this is the preseason. What do you mean you tired of being embarrassed? These don't even count. These games don't count. What did you think this was? College, where you just go out and just win against lesser opponents week in and week out because you have better no, this is the NFL. Everyone here is a professional and gets paid to do their job. Everyone here was the guy on their college team. What exactly did you think you were getting yourself into? Wow. Moving on. It says there's been staff turnover since Meyer arrived in January for a variety of reasons. Chris Doyle, we've talked about that one in some of my past streams. Chris Doyle resigned under pressure in February after renewed focus on the allegations of racial remarks that led to Doyle's separation agreement at the University of Iowa in 2020. Now, this is something that, honestly, Doyle's separation agreement at the University of Iowa in 2020. To me, this is something that is this speaks to the literal, how do I put this? This type of thing could only happen in college. A separation agreement, which really should say Doyle's termination at the University of Iowa in 2020. That is the culture difference between collegiate football and the NFL. That is one of the culture differences. This is not something that happens in the NFL because there is no softening the blow of what is actually happening to you when you are being forced to resign or actually you're being fired because of controversy and detrimental behavior that you have brought to a football program. This is the culture that Urban Meyer wants as an NFL coach. The separation agreement. He wants for any controversial situations, any shady, shifty, sketchy situations that he's involved with to be given this kind of treatment. But this ain't the fucking little leagues, my friend. This is the big show, as they say in baseball. This is the big show. This is the NFL. You're not getting this kind of treatment. There's not going to be separation agreements. There's not going to be, a sweeping of things under the rug where you can bury any kind of narrative because you have a vast amount of power as a collegiate head coach for a major program where you're given that ability to rule with an iron fist. That's not going to happen in the NFL because there's just far too much at stake money-wise. And from a business standpoint, there are so many things, and there are some players that are more valuable than you are as a coach. And you are not going to be given the leeway to treat them any way you want because they are valuable. Literal dollar amounts can be placed on their value. But let's continue on here. It says, special teams coordinator Brian Schneider took a leave of absence in May for personal reasons and did not return. Wonder what happened there. Meyer's chief of staff. What? What is this? Chief of staff. They got that, and that's something that exists. Let's see. Fernando Lovo left the team last month to return to the University of Texas. So you've got staff already jumping ship. Tight ends coach Tyler Bowen is expected to become offensive coordinator at Virginia Tech, according to college sports and recruiting site on3.com. So if you're paying attention to the pattern here, a lot of these coaches on the Jaguars coaching staff are college coaches. And seeing how this ship is literally sinking at an accelerated rate, these guys are jumping. They are abandoning ship with still, 7 games left to go in the season? Or wait, they're 10-2, or they're 2-10, I'm sorry. So 2-10, they've got, 6 games left? Something like that. They added a game, 6 games, something like that. Anyways. But these are college coaches. These are all college coaches. And they're going the fuck back to college where they're comfortable, where they're not, where they're not being berated because for some reason the guy who was supposed to be the guidance, the guy who's supposed to be the leader, is putting the blame on them for everything that's going wrong with the team. And more staff changes are expected after the season, even assuming Meyer stays. There have been other missteps. In July, the NFL fined the Jaguars $200,000 and Meyer $100,000 for violating rules on organized team activities and docked them 2 OTA days in 2022. So basically, to explain what happens there, is during OTAs, if you are in violation of certain rules, which has to do with level of physicality, which means there are certain drills that you should not be running during OTAs because these are not padded practices. There's length of practice, should I say? Your practice should only be a certain amount of time, and if you go over that time, you're in violation. And for them to fine you $200,000 and fine the coach $100,000, and then dock you 2 OTA practices in 2022, that means you have repeatedly violated rules for OTAs, and a player's rep for the union of the NFL players has made a phone call and reported the violations. So you've been fucking up. You've been breaking the rules, and players caught on to it, and they got tired of it, and they complained to the player's rep, who was also a player, and that player's rep got in touch with the NFLPA and let them know what was happening. The NFLPA will then they won't request, they will basically subpoena, quote unquote, subpoena the film of your practices from the Jaguars. They want the film, they want the script for the practice, they want the entire framework of these days of practice. You send those to the NFLPA. NFLPA will look at them and determine how long you guys were practicing, what drills you were doing, and they'll watch your practices and say, this crosses the line based on the rules that we've set for how practices are supposed to go. And these are all things that are agreed upon with the NFL CBA agreement. So they will then say, these rules are being violated. They will send that to the NFL. The NFL will say, these rules have been violated. You're going to be fined. You're going to lose practices, this many practices for next year. And in some cases, they will stop the OTAs, period, for the rest of the offseason. They will say, you're not even allowed to do any more OTAs. No players can be in the facility until their next time that they're required to be there, which will be like training camp. So then, until that OTA period is done, no players are allowed to be at the facility or be in contact with coaches because your OTAs have been canceled. That's what it boils down to. That happened to us one year with Mike Mularkey. They canceled our OTAs because he was violating them. We were doing one-on-one pass rush drills with no pads on. We were doing conditioning periods, and we were practicing for almost 30 minutes past the required time to practice. And they canceled our shit. They was like, nope, you're done. You're done. Shut down OTAs. All players must vacate by tomorrow. until the next required time to be in Jacksonville. And that was it. So we got like an extra 7 or 8 days off, plus that month off before training camp. So, we were actually, I wasn't mad at it. Not gonna lie, I wasn't mad at it at all. But that's just kind of to give you guys context on how that is actually a big deal. Like that is a problem. That is the first big red flag for players and for the media and for, other coaching staffs when they see Jacksonville's over there fucking up. And we ain't even in the season yet. They're fucking up in OTAs. Looking at the chat here. Yeah. The PA basically audits that entire the in question practices, the practices that are in question. And that's how they did it. In September, so let's start back up here. In September, the NFL Players Association announced it was launching an investigation after Meyer acknowledged to reporters that the team factored vaccination status into cut-down decisions. The state of that investigation is unclear. 23 of 24 players cut were vaccinated. That's weird. That's a little strange. I guess we'd have to wait to see how that investigation comes out. But that was another big issue with Urban Meyer. Even saying that out loud was a problem in the NFL. And of course, there were the October viral videos. Oh, shit. There were the October viral videos, which were shot in the days following a 24-21 loss to the Bengals that dropped Jacksonville to 0-4. And what I find so hypocritical about this situation in particular was that in the press conferences following the game, Urban Meyer acted as if the team was so devastated and he was so devastated and there was going to be, such a bond built with the players because they really fought their asses off, which I have no doubt they did. Fought their asses off. It was a close game. They lost the game. And we're going to be a closer team because of this. And in normal circumstances, that is generally kind of the thing that happens when you lose a game the way they did against the Bengals. There is sort of a, hey, we see that we can be successful here. So we've got to kind of bear down. We've got to tighten the bolts. We've got to, connect and tighten the circle up so that we can figure out what it is that we need to correct. We can get coached up on these things. We can have a great week of preparation. And I think, I'm not sure. No, I don't think they had it. I think they had the next week off, obviously, because it was a Thursday night game. But you've got a little bit of downtime there that you can have for a weekend. And, generally you come back from that and guys are really energized to take that next step. Because at this point, you could argue that they had taken steps to actually improve as a team. And this would be a good time to take a significant step forward that may have led to a win the next week against their next opponent. But that was not to be. Because, of course, Urban Meyer decided he was not going to fly home with the Jaguars, with the team that had such a heartbreaking loss that he was so heartbroken over. He decided he was not going back. He was going to get his grind on. Hence the grinder incident in Ohio at his own bar. At his own bar that he owned, no less. Meyer apologized publicly and to the team, put quotes around to the team because as we would find out, he didn't really apologize to the team. He's a liar. Telling players days later he had too much to drink and acted like an asshole idiot. Khan released a somewhat tepid statement of support for Meyer, calling his conduct inexcusable and adding, "I appreciate Urban's remorse, which I believe is sincere. Now we must regain our trust and respect. That will require a personal commitment from Urban Meyer to everyone who supports, represents, or plays for our team. I'm confident he will deliver." He has not delivered. Just a heads up on that. He has not delivered up to this point. The Jaguars actually won 2 of their next 4 games, ending a 20-game franchise losing streak and giving Meyer his first NFL win over the Dolphins in London before stunning the Bills 9-6 3 weeks later. But they haven't won since, and signs of progress have faded, with a high-profile coach who, along with Lawrence, was supposed to bring fans back to TIAA Bank Field. The Jaguars currently rank 30th in the NFL in attendance. No surprise there. Khan made his fortune in the car bumper business, learning the value of building processes over time, and he has applied that mentality to NFL ownership. He stuck with Coach Gus Bradley until his 4th season, despite Bradley's 14-48 record with a young rebuilding team. Bradley's successor, Doug Marrone, lasted 4 full seasons, taking the Jaguars to the AFC Championship game after the 2017 season, but finishing 24-43 before his dismissal after last season. In October, Khan told the NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport, days after the Jaguars' first win in mid-October, that he absolutely has faith in Meyer, and expanded on his statement about the videos. "I think this is the NFL," Khan said. "You're on a stage all the time and you have to be absolutely self-aware." Now, that is the end of this article. And it's funny to me because as I look at this situation, I see a lot of cliche statements being made from both Shad Khan and Urban Meyer consistently when these things are brought to light. But I think that the fact of the matter here truly is that these guys both don't know anything about football from a truly enlightened level of perception of knowledge. They do not really understand the game and the culture of professional football. It's not something that they have totally grasped yet. And, you know, as an owner of a franchise, I'm not going to say that you absolutely have to have a nuanced understanding of football, but you need to know you need to understand what you should be looking for in a head coach, in someone to lead your franchise. You should know what it is that builds a successful franchise. And you should know whether or not the people who are potential candidates to be the leader of your franchise, you should know whether or not they truly understand it themselves. And it's hard to actually know if someone has that knowledge unless you yourself know what key things they should understand about building a culture, how those are put together to create a path forward for the franchise. I don't think that Shad Khan understood whether or not Urban Meyer truly knows football. He looks at, this was a sexy hire, as I've said many times. This was a sexy hire, but it was not a hire that was based in actual data that you can look at, that you can fill in the blanks with to understand where Urban Meyer is as a football mind, as someone who understands the game. Because there are many different ways in which a coach can lead a team and be successful, but they all have one common denominator: knowing football. You have to know it. There are coaches who have never played football professionally, but they understand the game because they have been engulfed in football for decades. They understand the nuance of strategy. They understand the nuance of culture, the nuance of team building. These are things that are all important to the success of a football team. Urban Meyer does not have these very, traditional traits. He doesn't have them. Not only that, he doesn't have the personal integrity to be a leader to grown men. You can't lie to grown men. And that is what he's tried to do on numerous occasions with the Jaguars. Now, I want to take us to another article here. And again, I appreciate you guys for being here with me. You guys have been great. And I see we got another super chat here from Mexican Iron Man. My guy, what's up, brother? $10 super chat from Mexican Iron Man. He says, Uche, why do you think college coaches fail, have a tough time in the NFL? What are the barriers to success? Thank you, Mexican Iron Man. And I think I kind of was just speaking on that, in that you have to actually understand the sport itself. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be successful in the NFL, but you cannot earn the respect of the players and the staff and the building itself without actually understanding what you're trying to build with them and how you're going to get to the point where they can buy into what it is you're trying to sell them, because you are selling them culture. Now, I think this is something that, and let me see, give me a second here to pull this up. Let me see here. How would I do this? Okay. Let me pull this up real quick. This is something that all NFL teams, not only NFL teams, this is something that all NFL teams, all team sports, this is the team sports, this is literally the team sports like Bible. And I'm trying to find, let me see if I can find okay. And I think that this is something that even, let me see. I'm trying to, okay. Boom, boom, boom. Let's see if this one. Okay, boom. I'm gonna have to make this full screen. But I think that this is something that is important for everyone to at least to see this, because this is something that, as a player, this is what I believe culture of football is literally built upon. So give me a second here to pull it up. Let me see. Boom, boom. 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 Crap. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let me just do this. This might be better. Okay, boom. Here we go. This is what I wanted. Okay. This is what I wanted right here. This is what you're supposed to be teaching. Boom. Here we go. This is the framework for building culture in team sports. This is the framework. This is what every worthwhile head coach, this is what every Fortune 500 company looks at. This is how you build the culture of your team. This is how you build it. Wooden. This is John Wooden's pyramid of success. This is the pyramid that every season of my NFL career, we had team meetings during training camp going through each portion, each piece of this pyramid we went through and we discussed, and it was presented to players as the framework for the foundation of this year's team. These are the things you must understand before we can go any further. This is literally what would be on the screen in the team meeting room. And I'm not going to spend, multiple hours going through this because that's what it takes to really understand it. But I will give you the main bullet points in this. Industriousness. Success travels in the company of very hard work. There is no trick. There is no easy way. Friendship. Strive to build a team filled with camaraderie and respect, comrades in arms. Loyalty. Be true to yourself. Be true to those you lead. Be true to those you lead. Cooperation. Have utmost concern for what's right rather than who's right. Enthusiasm. Your energy and enjoyment, drive, and dedication will stimulate and greatly inspire others. Self-control. Self-control. Control of your organization begins with control of yourself. Be disciplined. I think that we can already see where Urban Meyer has follied in much of this. Loyalty, self-control, enthusiasm, cooperation. He's not hitting on any of these. Alertness. Constantly be aware and observing. Always seek to improve yourself and the team. Initiative. Make a decision. Failure to act is often the biggest failure of all. Intentness. Stay the course. When thwarted, try again. Harder, smarter, persevere relentlessly. Condition. Ability may get you to the top, but character keeps you there, mental, moral, and physical. Ability may get you to the top, Urban Meyer. Your ability to convince young kids to come to Ohio State, Florida, may have gotten you to the top. But character keeps you there. Flying home with your team after a tough loss. That's usually character that is assumed. You didn't even do that. So you can't be somebody with true character. Not if that is how you literally handle situations where your character is going to be relied on to get through a rough patch for the franchise that you're now the leader of. And you failed at the first instance of testing that character. You failed miserably. The grinder incident. Skill. What a leader learns after you've learned it all counts most of all. What a leader learns after you've learned it all counts most of all. So what that means is when you're somebody who has 3 national championships on the collegiate level, one would assume that you'd probably be a little bit of the mindset that you know how to be successful on the collegiate level. One could say that you know it all when it comes to winning college football championships. But now you're in the NFL, so it's what you learn now that counts most. Everything that you brought into this situation is no longer relevant to success. It's what you learn the moment you start in the NFL that's relevant to success. Team spirit. The star of the team is the team. We supersedes me. I think that we all kind of understand that. If you've ever been in a team environment, you know it's the we over the me. We all have heard that kind of statement before. Poise. Be yourself. Don't be thrown off by events, whether good or bad. Poise. Keeping your composure. Again, you look at Urban Meyer. Do any of these things ring a bell to you when you think of Urban Meyer? I can't say that any of these. I can't say that I've seen him, show any of these traits whatsoever. I have not seen it. Confidence. The strongest steel is well-founded self-belief. It is earned, not given. Confidence is earned, it's not given. The strongest steel is well-founded self-belief. These are things that you can only build confidence by putting in the work and by seeing the work actually translate from practice to the field. That's where you begin to get confidence, when you see things that work in practice work on the field. And a lot of times when things aren't working in games, they didn't work in practice either. A lot of times that is the case. And that's the case. And again, when you look, all these things that I've read to you, which are just these are the building blocks of leadership, and this pyramid of success is culminated completely with this final block at the top. This is what everything you've done under adds up to at the very top of this pyramid. Competitive greatness. Competitive greatness. Perform at your best when your best is required. Your best is required each day. This is the one. This is what everything you do as a team is built towards. This is what everything you do is supposed to culminate in. Competitive greatness. That is the ability to go out there and compete to the very best of your abilities every single week. Doesn't mean you're going to win every game. Doesn't mean you're going to win a game. But when you come together as a team and you have all of these parts together as a team, you will find you're the best version of yourself as a player to be able to take that on the field on Sundays. This is what I was taught. This is what was ingrained in me as a player. That these are the things that I have to master in order to be my best version, the best version of myself, to compete in the best way possible. I don't think that this is something that is controversial. This ain't no secret. This isn't something that, only a few know about. This is what Fortune 500 companies use. They use this pyramid. This is what every team sport worth their salt uses. They use this framework because this person here he understands the art of success. Will anybody dispute that John Wooden does not necessarily his name doesn't equal success? We all know that John Wooden was hugely successful. One of the most successful coaches in sports, period. And these were the principles of leadership and competitive greatness that he developed. And he shared it with the world. And this is what the Jaguars are sorely missing right now. This is what they're missing. And, just to kind of bring this thing, bring a little bit more context to this, Gene Fournette. Gene Fournette is a writer in Jacksonville, sports journalist in Jacksonville, who I've known for years because I've talked to him, obviously as a player. I've talked to him on many occasions, and even after being with the Jaguars, I still, even to this day, have conversations with Gene Fournette about the Jaguars. And This was something that this was an article that Gene put out last week. This is something that Gene put out last week. And I think that, it was a little bit of a foreboding situation where he's kind of seeing where this is all going to head towards. Along with Jaguars losing, Urban Meyer may be losing benefit of doubt. Nearly 11 months ago, and I'll go through this article quickly. Nearly 11 months ago, it seemed like an ideal match from both a marketing and a football standpoint. Urban Meyer taking the NFL plunge with the franchise in close proximity to where he became a legendary coach, just 75 miles away at the University of Florida, was viewed by many as a home run hire. All right. If nothing else, he was most certainly a polarizing one, which at least made the Jaguars somewhat relevant nationally instead of a total afterthought. Plus, knowing Meyer would acquire a generational talent in quarterback Trevor Lawrence with the number 1 pick, the belief the Jaguars finally had a foundation for long-term success began gaining some traction. Let's see. Oh, what's going on? Uh-oh. What's happening? Oh. Okay. Okay, there we go. Now, a lot of that momentum and excitement appears to have diminished, gradually eroding not so much by the Jaguars' 2-9 record. And again, I say this was a couple weeks ago that he did this. He put this article out. It's more the growing feeling that Meyer, knowing the college to NFL thing wasn't going to be easy, has found it to be a bigger adjustment than he cares to publicly admit. When I posed the question to him Wednesday about the NFL learning curve, Meyer replied, and again, folks, I think that we need to understand one thing about Urban Meyer at this point. He is a liar. He is a liar. He is a bullshitter. Because as we've seen, when it comes to the actual reason as to why James Robinson was benched, he used an injury as the reason. That was a lie. He was lying. That was not why James Robinson was benched. He's lying. We know that. And if you go back through a lot of his interviews where he's being asked about odd decisions, he tends to be lying. If you go and kind of double back on what he said then as compared to where he's kind of inferring now. So when I read this, you got to kind of start there, that what he's saying is kind of bullshit, because how would you know? Gene Fournette is asking him about the NFL learning curve. As a college coach coming to the NFL for the first time, when would you know that you understand the NFL? At what point would you know that in your first season? At what point would you feel like you've gotten a grasp on things in your first season? And you know things now. It's not something that's totally you don't know when the light comes on. The light just comes on at a certain point. And usually that's not in the first year. He's not going to latch on to the NFL and things that the NFL and ways the NFL operates in his first year, the same way that a rookie will not latch on and understand a playbook and the concepts of professional football in a confident way in their first year. It takes time for that light to finally come on and to shine bright. But here we go. Wednesday about the NFL, when I posed that question to him Wednesday about the NFL learning curve, Meyer replied, "It's about what I thought. I thought I knew what I was getting into. I knew it was putting together a staff, a roster, to say that I envisioned 2-9, I did not. I envisioned we would be a little cleaner team at this point. But I've coached a long time, studied this game a long time. I knew that week in and week out, you're facing the best players on the planet. But I thought we'd be a little cleaner by this point, certainly on offense." Okay. I mean, look, I'm not in the locker room. I can't necessarily tell you whether that is a valid take on this or not. But As a first-time NFL coach who has no experience on the professional level, who has no experience in actually building a roster, who is putting together his first staff, truly putting together his first team in a general sense, I wouldn't even know where to begin to predict our ability to win after, a half of a season or before going into that season. I would have no idea in what my thinking on how many games we could win would be, just simply because that is something that is so immeasurable at that point that you can't call it. You take the Detroit Lions, for example. You look at them. The Detroit Lions have won their first game. Now, did they imagine that they would lose 10 games, tie one, and then finally win? No. But if you ask that coach, Dan Campbell, at the beginning of the year, how many wins he feels they're going to have, he's not going to have an answer for that. How could you? You don't even know you haven't even seen your competition in real time yet. So for me, I'm not going to necessarily call him out on that per se, but I tend not to necessarily believe that you understand it the way you think you understand it. You don't want to look bad, so of course you're going to give yourself the benefit of the doubt here. But somebody who's been there, done that, I would say, nah, he's throwing you a little fluff there. Let's see. Obviously, some tough season-ending injuries to DJ Chark, Travis Etienne, Jamal Agnew, and now Dan Arnold have to be factored into the offensive struggles. Bigger concern is Meyer doesn't seem to be adjusting to the NFL world as quickly as the Jaguars need him to. His whole demeanor, be it on the sideline or in press conferences where his voice often trails off inexplicably in answering fairly routine questions, doesn't exude confidence or a commanding presence like a ship's captain. And where does that bring us back to, ladies and gentlemen? The pyramid of success. Poise, self-control. These are things that now a beat writer for the Jaguars is actually, without even knowing it, he's telling you that these things don't seem to be apparent in Urban Meyer at all. That's what he's telling you. His whole demeanor, be it on the sideline or in press conferences, where his voice often trails off inexplicably in answering fairly routine questions, doesn't exude confidence or commanding presence like a ship's captain. He too often looks like a coach who is in over his head. Confidence, poise, self-control, loyalty, all these things I was just telling y'all about. Wooden's pyramid of success, right here before your eyes, you are seeing that he is failing in each of these categories. And they're seeing it. The media is noticing it before he does. He too often looks like a coach who is in over his head, which shouldn't be the case for someone with his accomplished resume, albeit in college. Meyer's response to the whole James Robinson second guessing after last week's 24-14 loss to the Falcons, being on the sideline for the, I didn't even know he did this. Wow. Being on the sideline for the last 16 plays of the first half, including when the Jaguars reached the red zone, was astonishing. This is not something to be taken lightly if you're a Jaguars fan. So they lose by 7 to the Falcons. They're in the red zone in the first half, and their best player, their biggest playmaker on the team, is on the sideline. When asked why one of the NFL's toughest short yard runners was kept chained to the bench, even after the Jaguars had first and goal, holy shit, I didn't even know all this. Woo! Meyer replied, oh my fucking God, are you serious? Meyer replied, "You'd have to ask Bev, offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell, and Bernie, running backs coach Bernie Parmalee on that one. I don't micromanage that." Shad Khan. Shad, it's Uche. I don't know if you probably remember me. If you don't, it's Uche. I was there when you bought the team. Look, man, you got to get rid of this guy. I know you spent a lot of money. I get it. You spent a lot of money. But this motherfucker doesn't know what the fuck he is doing. And it's going to ruin you. It's going to ruin this team. We're going to have to start over again. Yes, we're going to. So we either need to start over now, or you can wait another 2 seasons. You're still going to pay him the money, and you're just going to make it worse for the franchise, and it's going to take longer to restart this thing. So please, I know that you're a very smart businessman, but as a former player, as somebody who actually has been through this before with your franchise, who understands that these things play out one of 2 ways, let me please give you just this small bit of advice. Get rid of him now. You got to. Put somebody at interim. The season's a wash. Fuck it. Get another high draft pick. And we got to make a complete 180-degree culture change from this shit right here. Because this ain't no football culture. He has not built a culture. He is literally trying to control chaos without any kind of actual safety net and support. He has no foundation. There's nothing to build on here. There's nothing to build on. Where are you going to start this roster at next year? What are you going to look for? How are you going to get guys to come in here in free agency? They're not coming. I can tell you that right now. They're not coming to Jacksonville in free agency. The only ones that you're going to be able to get, you'll have to pay them 1.5 what they should get for them to come, because that's literally the Jacksonville tax. If I'm coming to Jacksonville, I want 1.5 what I would actually be worth in a contract, or I'm not coming. And even then, that's for a mid-tier free agent to come. That's for a mid-tier. That's for your basics, your basic bitches. You're not going to get anybody of an elite caliber to come to Jacksonville, period. Not with Urban Meyer there. It's just not going to happen. So please, if you're looking at the bigger picture here, Urban Meyer is it's not going to work. I know you like him. I know you've been craving him. I get all that, but now you got him. He's already embarrassed your franchise. He embarrassed your franchise before the season even started, which, okay, it's not the worst thing that could happen that he hired a racist-ass coach for strength and conditioning. Not the worst thing that could happen. Got rid of him. Not the worst thing that could happen that he got your OTAs cut down for the upcoming season, and he got the team fined $200,000. Not the worst thing that could happen. But what he did in week 4 was a fireable offense, and you know it. You know it. But you like him, so you kept him. Since week 4, what has really improved in the culture of this team? And now, coming into a game against a division rival in Tennessee, which is one of our biggest rivals, and we have been getting our ass kicked by Tennessee for the last 3 or 4 years with a consistency, which is not something that I would ever, as a player, that was not how our games went down when we played against Tennessee. We were winning most of those. This is a failed experiment. It's failed. And if you have the true self-awareness, as I'm sure you do as a person who has been immensely successful in your own life, then you should see the bigger picture here, that he is not going to get it done. He doesn't even truly believe in the principles that he upholds the teams to. The term own it, he has failed to do at any point in this season. He has not owned anything in regard to how bad this team is from a preparation standpoint, not even from an individual player. This team is bad because they're not prepared correctly, because they don't have coaches with the experience or the guidance from their head coach to prepare them correctly. They don't have an identity. They don't have a direction. This is literally a dumpster fire of a franchise. There has to be drastic change, or you can sit back and let Urban Meyer completely bury the image of this team, the reputation of this franchise, even worse than it is now. And you can start again in 3 years and try again. At that point, you're probably ready to sell the team. Because look, how long until your investment begins to before you begin to take losses on your investment? I know that Shad Khan has done a lot. I know you've done a lot to kind of infuse money or introduce new opportunities from a financial standpoint to the city of Jacksonville. Since I've been back to see, Jacksonville has become a much bigger, more livelier city. But let's not mistake that this is still a small market team. And at a certain point, it is expendable in the eyes of the NFL. And they will move this team out of Jacksonville when it gets to a point where they literally are having to pull money from one end to try and make up for the shit that Jacksonville is on the other. So from a football standpoint, Urban Meyer is not going to work. For anybody who truly understands this level of football, that is a foregone conclusion that we can now say that with certainty. He doesn't get this shit, and he doesn't want to be held accountable, and he doesn't want to be made to look as the bad guy. If you don't understand that about Urban Meyer at this point, then I don't know what to fucking tell you. Secondly, because of his inability to lead and his inability to be accountable, there is no self-respecting NFL player who has come into this franchise to help them in any way. It might not even matter how much money you offer them. It might not even matter. So it doesn't even mean anything that you have the cap space that you have, because nobody sees any potential in this franchise in the next 3 years. Thirdly, number 16 his career will begin to be at jeopardy next season. His career will be in jeopardy if his ability to grow is stunted by yet another terrible year of football culture and football preparation. Like, if he's not able to grow in this game and understand this game on a higher level through good coaching, his career will begin to be in danger of being utterly wasted. And that's the number 1 overall pick. There's a special place in football hell for franchises that fuck off first overall picks. I'm just putting that out there. You don't want to be drafting another quarterback in 4 years. I'm just saying it now. That means something when you have to do that. That really does. Ask the New York Jets, ask the New York Giants, because they may be on the verge of doing that soon. You don't want to be redrafting at the top of the draft another quarterback in 4 years. It means you are literally committing football malpractice. And, yes, they're getting paid, but there is a lot of resentment and a lot of hate that can grow from a player who is treated that way. I've seen that happen to a player, a top pick, not a number 1, but I've seen it happen to a top 10, top 12 pick. I don't remember what pick Blaine Gabbert was exactly, but he was a top pick, and that's what happened to this kid's career. Now, obviously, much love to Blaine. I love the dude. He's a Super Bowl champion. He's backing up, Tom Brady. He may be a rare instance where before his career is over, he gets a chance to kind of actually be the guy he was supposed to be as a top pick in Jacksonville. He may get that chance. But the last thing you want to be known the last thing you want to be known as in Jacksonville is a franchise where players' careers are executed on a regular basis. And I'll be honest, in my opinion, post Jack Del Rio, that has been the direction that this franchise has headed in. A franchise where players' careers go to eventually be completely executed and die away. 2017 hey, at this point, people can actually make an argument that 2017 was an anomaly. Because what happened to all of those players? The same thing that happened to a lot of Jacksonville players over a short period of time. Their careers were 86th. They 86th the careers in Jacksonville, and usually they went on to go have great success somewhere else, which all brings it back to a common denominator, that this franchise is being mismanaged at its core. And that starts with you, the owner, Shad Khan. And at a certain point, the blame can only go to the head coach and the general manager for so long before people begin to say, maybe we just have the wrong owner who doesn't actually know what a good coach or a good general manager looks like, or what they should entail, what they should have as parts of their psyche and parts of their setup coming in to start up a team, to build a team. These are things that you really cannot look past, because there are things that are on the horizon at this point. People in Jacksonville are going to stop looking at the GM and the head coach, and they're going to start saying it's Shad Khan, because it didn't seem to matter who you put in place. It failed. So maybe you don't know how to put the right people in place. That's what people are going to begin to say. I'm just putting it out there. So take that as you will, but I would be remiss if I did not say in the most firmest of words, get Urban Meyer the fuck out of Jacksonville yesterday. That's it. That's how I feel. Now, I digress. We go back to this article. We're almost done with it here. So he was asked a question about James Robinson not being on the field. And, he doesn't micromanage that, is what Urban Meyer's response was. Now, Gene says here, really? Can you imagine that coming out of the mouth of any of Meyer's 31 other NFL colleagues? Can you imagine any NFL coach saying that they don't micromanage the running backs? They don't know what they should be doing. They don't know who should be in the game. No, you would never hear that from an NFL coach, because that would be ridiculous for any NFL coach to say. That would be fucking ludicrous. That would be... that would literally cause a double take. It'd be like, what the fuck did he just say? What did you just fucking say? You don't micromanage? Like, no. No. That would be fucking unbelievable. Nobody would believe that. Sorry, but as the head coach, there are times when it's imperative to step in and exercise veto power. It's Meyer's job to have an awareness for those situations and, if necessary, overrule his assistants to get the team's best offensive player on the field. I mean, the fact that he even has to say that is kind of fucking mind-blowing. Like, what is the role of the head coach, if not to actually make the important decisions for the franchise when they're needed to be made on the field, in the game? What's the identity? And I think I talked about this as well. And come on, what is going on with this? Okay, I talked about this as well. What's the identity? That's the second time this year Meyer seemed ill-equipped to explain why J-Rob was on the bench when his team with his team on the doorstep of the end zone. On October 10th against the Tennessee Titans, it happened on 4 straight plays on 1st and goal from the 5, with the Jaguars trailing 31-19. Robinson never got off the bench, and his team never got in the end zone. I mean, this is literally like self-sabotage, it feels like. After the game, when asked about J-Rob's absence, Meyer said, oh my God, this nigga is fucking crazy. Meyer said he wasn't sure whether number 25 had been dinged up, and then added, I just met with Bev, the offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel, and we talked about it. I don't micromanage who's in the game. I should have. James is running really hard, but so is Carlos Hyde. This motherfucker has got me. This dude got the game fucked up. I'm sorry, y'all. This dude has got the game fucked up. He is full of shit. He just don't want to be seen as the dude who fucked this up. But he's the one who is keeping. These cats will not keep James Robinson out of the game unless you tell them not to, Urban Meyer. It's you, bruh. It's you. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's you. Like, what is this? And he keeps using the same word. So in 2 different instances, Meyer pulled out the don't micromanage card. Oh my God, what the hell is going on here? Stop messing this. All these ads are making the dang page freeze up. Okay, so in 2 different instances, Meyer pulled out the don't micromanage card without really sounding definitive in his position about what to do in those situations. I mean, he doesn't know what to do. He does not know what to do. Too many Urban Meyer interview sessions produce a head-scratching answer of some sort, like last week with his response about why it's taken so long to find an ideal offense that best fits Lawrence. Hold on, man. Before I read this quote, let me just, look, man. I know it's hard being a coach, which is one of the reasons why I've avoided it at all costs. Just, it's not an easy life for a head coach who's constantly, under the microscope. That is understood without saying anything. But at some point, you got to be a fucking man. At some point, you got to be a fucking man. And you got to own it. His answer, I think so much of it is when you're not quite sure of what your personnel is capable of. We want to be run first with Trevor, which I don't understand what that means. What? You want him to run the ball? I mean, if you're trying to be a run-first team, then you're trying to be a run-first team that gives him the ability to work off of the success of our run game to get the most efficient passes out. That's what I would think. But he says we want to be a run-first with Trevor, and then at times when you don't score, you get behind a little bit and it starts to transition. So no, there's no stubbornness. What does this mean? Hold on. Oh my God. Let me read this again. I'm trying to understand what the hell this actually means, what he's saying right here. Hold on. Excuse me. About to sneeze. Okay, I'm good. I think so much of it is when you're not quite sure of what your personnel is capable of. Like what? You had all of training camp in the preseason and even every game up until this point to understand what your personnel is capable of. You should know. We want to be run first with Trevor, and then at times when you don't score, you get behind a little bit and it starts to transition. So no, there's no stubbornness. Like, I don't understand. What What is this? What is stubbornness? Like, he's not asking, like, this is not the right application of this word. Like, when you're in context, this is not, this makes the entire statement actually very, like, confusing, as you can see. Like, I don't understand that statement in the slightest. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. It's just, we're all figuring this thing out. Oh, this is such a cliche fucking line. We're all figuring this thing out, and we should have it figured out by now. And I would say this, that it's not like we don't have it figured out. We're not executing at a high level. What the fuck does any of this mean? Is this an answer for real? What does this mean? What the fuck does this mean? Too many Urban Meyer interview sessions to produce a head-scratching answer of some sort, like last week with his response about why it's taken so long to find an ideal offense that best fits Lawrence. So they're asking why have they not figured out how the identity of this team, basically, at this point? What kind of offense do you want to be? We want to be run first with Trevor, which is slightly confusing because it's like, okay, is that RPO offense, run pass option? Or is this you want to be a run offense that will give Trevor a chance to throw the ball in more favorable situations? That would make sense if you said that. But this is not what he's saying. He says we want to be run first with Trevor, and then at times when you don't score, you get behind a little bit and it starts to transition. So no, there's no stubbornness. I don't know what the fuck stubbornness has to do with any of this. Then he says, it's just we're all figuring this thing out and we should have it figured out by now. And I would say this, that it's not like we don't have it figured out. We're not executing at a high level. What, motherfucker? What? The fuck are you talking about? Like, that is like, it's almost like a damn, like, tongue twister. It's almost literally like he's, like this is I mean, if it were, when you say, like, somebody's asking you a trick question, this is like a trick answer. It's just we're all figuring this thing out, and we should have it figured out by now. And I would say this, that it's not like we don't have it figured out. Like, right there, you're just like, what the fuck? What? I mean, you literally, golly, what is up with this tab? Okay. Like, literally, dude, like, I mean, what? This website is, like, funny. I can't even, like, highlight shit right now. This is all you needed to say. I mean, which still, at the end of the day, we're not executing at a high level. It's not actually an answer to the question you were asked. But instead of saying all this stupid shit before it, you should have just said we're not executing at a high level and leave it at that. At least the answer itself is understandable. He's just saying we're not getting shit done right now. But this, it's just we're all figuring this thing out, and we should have figured it out by now. And I would say this, that it's not like we don't have it figured out. We're just not executing at a high level. That doesn't make sense when you're even like trying to answer the direct question of what is the identity of this team. You're not making any sense. So Meyer says in one breath that the Jaguars should have an offensive identity figured out as they approach Sunday's road matchup against the Los Angeles Rams, implying they might not. Then he follows up by suggesting not to get the wrong idea about whether the Jaguars have a handle on an offense that best suits Trevor. Which is like, I mean, these are things that are like confusing my brain in many different ways. And I mean, Gene, credit to Gene Fournette. He's trying to kind of like, he's trying to present what he thinks all of this shit means, but he's also pointing out how it kind of doesn't make sense either. Like, it doesn't really make any damn sense. When the head coach is convoluted in his message, especially in the immediate aftermath of another loss, it understandably gives a lot of people pause about the Jaguars' chances for a franchise turnaround. Yes, that he is saying right there, Gene is saying, when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, especially after you just get your ass kicked again, a lot of people are going to start to wonder whether or not you can actually fucking do this job. Because at this point, you're literally, it's all word fucking vomit. Like, it all sounds and smells like shit, and it doesn't really give us any answers. It just it's just a smokescreen of nothingness. Like, you don't know what you're doing. And you don't even know how to convey even the slightest, like, you can't even front that you know what you're doing because it's so bad. You can't even answer the basic questions about this shit. Like, this is bad. This is so bad. And I mean, I had not read a lot of these answers. I've not read a lot of these answers to media questions. Like, this is my first time reading some of these answers, and I'm just like, what is he talking about? Anyways, intentional or not, Meyer is giving off a perception of taking too long to grasp what must be done to make sure he's getting the most production out of the Jaguars. Progress is too slow. The coach who says he wants the best of the best for all aspects of the franchise, including the best coaches, has fallen far way short of that standard so far, except for the 9-6 upset. Oh shit, hold on. We got a page blow up here. I don't know what's happening. Chrome's about to crash. Yep. No, it didn't. Okay, cool. Okay. Progress is too slow. Let's finish this up, guys. Let's finish this up. I appreciate you guys. You guys have been freaking awesome. Make sure you smash that like button. If you want to support the channel, drop me a super chat. You drop a super chat with a question on it, I'll read it. I'll talk about it. I see a lot of questions in the chat. Unfortunately, I can't graze through all that stuff and be able to give you concise answers without actually, seeing it as a super chat. Because if I see it as a super chat, it's right there. It's in my face. I see it. I can answer it. I see some questions in there, and I'm trying to give you guys my perspective. So let me know. Let me know if you really got a super question you want to get an answer on. Drop that super chat in there, and we can talk about it. But let's see here. Except for the 9-6 upset win over the Buffalo Bills, plus parts of the Cincinnati and Arizona games, Meyer has been outcoached rather consistently and often decisively. Now, to be fair, this is his first NFL rodeo, so there was bound to be adjustments. By comparison, through 11 games, Tom Coughlin in his first season was 3-8 and had lost 4 one-score games. Jack Del Rio, Mike Mularkey, and Gus Bradley were all 2-9 through the latter. They were all 2-9, though the latter never competitive in his losses. That's Gus Bradley. What makes the Jaguars' slow start more disconcerting is, besides a lack of discipline with an inordinate amount of false starts and other bad penalties, along with the boss constantly bemoaning about getting this thing or that thing fixed, we're watching Lawrence's progress move entirely too slow. This is what I was saying. I was saying that at a certain point, your biggest asset is going to begin to get affected in a negative way, and that is what will break the back of this franchise's franchise's opportunity to try and build something is once that number one overall is broken. And you don't want, I mean, that is like, it's hard to come back off of that. It's hard, very hard. Remember, it was Meyer who waited until the Gardner Minshew trade on August 28th to start giving Trevor the majority of first-team snaps. While rookie QB Mac Jones of the New England Patriots has had far more success out of the gate, what gets lost in that comparison is the Bowl school product has the benefit of six-time Super Bowl winner Bill Belichick as head coach and longtime Pats offensive coordinator Josh Daniels calling plays. Lawrence has a head coach breaking into the NFL and an OC working together for the first time. Big difference there. Yeah, it is a big difference, which is one of the reasons why you should never have brought him into the scenario. Should never have been Urban Meyer given the job of managing the growth of Trevor Lawrence. He doesn't know how to fucking grow quarterbacks. You go and find somebody who knows how to work with NFL quarterbacks. Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy was a perfect potential head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars who was working with probably, you know, if you check all the boxes of the abilities of Patrick Mahomes and you align those with the abilities of Trevor Lawrence, that is probably the most favorable connection that you could make in regards to setting a quarterback up with the head coach who understands how to build that quarterback, how to create an environment, and how to operate an offense that will absolutely take advantage of his physical abilities. Trevor Lawrence arguably is more physically gifted than Patrick Mahomes is. From an athletic standpoint, he is a more, I don't want to say prototypical, but he is absolutely he is physically more diverse, I would say, than Patrick Mahomes to an extent. And when you're talking about building and growing that and grooming that to become an elite level quarterback, Trevor Lawrence can get there just as fast as Patrick Mahomes did. He can. He should with the right coaching. And that has been ultimately the difference. And that's where, for the Jaguars, you're making the same mistakes that you've been making for the last 7 years. You cannot get in the right coaches, the right personnel to actually optimize the abilities of the players you have on the field. 2017, again, can be considered an anomaly when you look at the results of that season and compare them to the season before and the season after. They were not even remotely in the same level in regards to success. So this is not a team that had actually been groomed to be successful. This is a team that happened to have a favorable schedule. This was a team that had a defense that caught fire and stayed on fire throughout the course of the season because they had extremely talented players who, even though they were extremely talented, they themselves had already been privy to the notion that the culture of the Jaguars was not good and the cracks were already developing even though they were winning games and in the postseason. The cracks were already there and it was going to break eventually. It only took one season after that for those cracks to break that entire team up. Players weren't respected. Players weren't treated right. Players weren't used correctly. Players were gone within 2 years of being in the AFC title game. Unbelievable. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. Absolutely. And they're all in better places now than they were when they were with Jacksonville going to that AFC title game. But let's continue here. Nearly 11 months ago, it seemed like an ideal match for, oh, wait. No, we're at the top here. Let me just get back down here. Okay, so we're at the last part of this. Still, so little about the Jaguars team is buttoned up. Meyer constantly wears the look of a haggard CEO, one who can't get his operation to run in sync. He talks incessantly about a good locker room, almost every player being a warrior, and the Jaguars' improvement being just on the horizon. cliche general statements that he has mastered on the college level because people are just that naive to believe that those are the things that determine success, that these are the words from somebody who understands success better than anyone else. He's been a fraud his entire time. The college level just allowed for him to put himself in the best positions where he had to do the smallest amount of work, and he could be that figurehead who just showed his face, took pictures, and absorbed all of the credit for something that he really truly was not deserving the credit for. He had top recruiting classes because of school programs, tradition, and reputations that preceded him, and he took advantage of that. But he was never a guy who could lead these people. And if you go and ask some of the Ohio State players of the time, if you go and ask guys like Percy Harvin from Florida, they will tell you that he was never a leader to them, that he wasn't the motivator that he was given credit for being. He was a fraud. And it is being exposed at the purest level, at the highest level in the NFL. Let's see. Every player being a warrior and the Jaguars' improvement being just on the horizon, but there's little evidence on Sundays to support that last claim. Key injuries aside, the Jaguars should be further along in the transformation process. Their offense scoring output, 15.7 points per game, is only a half point higher than the 2011 version that was the worst in team history. Mike Malarkey. Fucking God. Oh. Every time I hear that name, I want to throw the fuck up. Okay. The defense is better than last year's woeful product, but painfully inept at creating turnovers. It has exposed a personnel shortage that isn't going away without GM Trent Baalke and Meyer. What? Come on. Given all the power by owner Shad Khan to run the team as he sees fit, having a better offseason of acquisitions than their first shopping spree. Overseeing all this is a coach who, due to an embarrassing video captured in an Ohio bar that compelled Khan to publicly say he had to regain the organization's trust and respect, too often looks like he's out of his league. The good news for Meyer is time is still on his side. Even if the Jaguars win no more than a game or two the last 6 weeks, Khan is too enamored with him to not give the 3-time national championship coach at least 2 more years to get the franchise on a winning track. He can still get this thing turned around, but I suspect it's a steeper climb than he envisioned. Pay close attention to this coming offseason, particularly whether Meyer parts ways with some of his coaching staff. A new offensive coordinator, receivers coach, and or quarterbacks coach may not be an ideal thing for Trevor, but it wouldn't be surprising given the inconsistency of this offense. For now, not winning games is only part of Urban Meyer's problem. The bigger one is losing the benefit of the doubt. And that is from Gene Fournette. Gene Fournette is a reliable source of information in Jacksonville. I've known the guy for a long time. He has quoted me correctly on many occasions, and he has been very forthcoming with his own perspective on this, and he's not necessarily holding back in how he sees things going in Jacksonville, because we've all seen this before. This is the shit this is why we get so enraged about it. Like, these are the same problems. These are the same inconsistencies. These are the same issues that have haunted this franchise since Jack Del Rio left the franchise. I mean, I tweeted it out that I said it, and I'm still mean it. The last good head coach of the Jaguars was Jack Del Rio. To me, that's not a controversial thing to say. Doug Marrone got to an AFC Championship game, but he was not actually like a great coach. He had a very, very, very talented defense that did a lot of the heavy lifting, because the offense still wasn't a great offense. Now, they had a rookie Leonard Fournette that actually played really well, but I mean, they fucked that off within 2 years. He was gone. They called him a cancer. They cut him. They didn't even try to trade. They just cut him. They just cut the guy. You cut a first-round pick running back who was actually a good running back. Good running back. We got a $10 super chat here from RC from NYC. What's up, man? He says, what's up, Uche? What's up, chat? Hope all is good. The Myers experiment is mirroring what Washington did in bringing in Steve Spurrier. And we saw how that ruined that franchise for some time. And no, you're 100% correct. Steve Spurrier, when he went to Washington to be with the Washington football team, which was at the time the Redskins, this was a guy who really had a lot of similarities to Urban Meyer. He was a coach who had a lot of success in the collegiate level because of the recruiting classes that he was already, given the luxury of having. This was not a situation where a coach was starting from scratch and was building with these recruits that he was bringing in and laying the groundwork. He already had these things coming to him. So he was able to just benefit from the success of it as the Florida coach, as Florida's coach. And when he came to the NFL, which even, back then, fundamentally still the same principles were required and the same kind of processes were required in order to build a franchise, to build a roster. He had no idea what he was doing. He had no idea how to handle the players. He had no idea how to handle the front office. He had no idea how to handle free agency, how to handle the draft. And he fucked off that entire franchise. And it took a long time for them to recover from that. And again, Shad Khan has been very quiet since this story broke about the actual problems in the locker room in Jacksonville. And I would say if you look to the tenure of Mike Mularkey and you look at how Shad Khan responded to that head coach and how he handled the franchise in negating a 4-year contract and paying out that 4-year contract to get him the fuck out of there and firing Mike Mularkey, then that should lead you to believe that there's really only one way for this to end at the end of this season, and that is to fire Urban Meyer, to get rid of him now. Because, again, there's a lot there are some things that I honestly don't think Shad Khan is really considering. And one of the biggest things you have to consider is the free agency market. Players won't come here. They will not go to Jacksonville. And that's because of Urban Meyer. It is. Players who actually can change the trajectory of the franchise in a big way and can also be instrumental to the growth of Trevor Lawrence will not come to Jacksonville. They'll go to Green Bay. They'll go to Buffalo. Shit. They'll go to Indianapolis. Places where there ain't nothing to do either. They'll go there before they go to Jacksonville. And that's going to be that's going to be a massive problem because of Urban Meyer. So you're going to have to rely on draft classes, which you can build a great franchise through the draft, but that's about 60% of what is needed. When you're looking at, you need this, and you need this. You need good coaches, you need good players, you need to sign good free agents. You need good draft players, good free agents, good coaches. That's how you build it. Those are the 3 pillars of building a franchise. And again, you mean to tell me that would there even be a slither of a chance of getting somebody like Devontae, what's his name, from Green Bay, the receiver? What's his name? Give me his name, guys. I'm blanking. Y'all get it. You know who I'm talking about. The receiver from Green Bay. You think you could get anybody from Green Bay, anybody from L.A.? Devontae Adams. Yes, thank you. You mean that the Jaguars could afford to pay Devontae Adams more money than the Green Bay Packers can pay him? The Green Bay Packers could offer him a $100 million contract. The Jaguars could offer him a $150 million contract and he would still take the Green Bay contract. Why? Because at the end of the day, you want to win. You want to go to a team that has good culture. You want to go to a team that has good teammates. And you want to go to a team that knows how to win. Jacksonville might have one of those, good teammates. They don't have anything else. So at that point, the money is it's not worth as much as the possibility of winning or having a chance to get to a Super Bowl, because that ultimately is the ultimate goal, to win on a high level. And, again, that is what is at stake for these Jacksonville Jaguars. That's what is at stake. These are the things that make the differences for franchises. And there is no better example at this time than looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That Tampa Bay franchise largely is the same team that had Jameis Winston as the quarterback. You changed one piece in that franchise for the most part. Well, two pieces, couple pieces. But the major piece that you brought in was a quarterback who knew how to win. Now, on top of that, you take a player from Jacksonville who was cast away as a cancerous, selfish, no good player that's not going to help any team and no team should go get him. And who's the first team that came knocking for him? Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay took that player and turned him into a Super Bowl champion. It took one player, and albeit it is Tom Brady, but it took one big player, one elite level player, to change the trajectory of a franchise from a franchise that had a good defense, had talent on offense, but didn't know how to fuck to win, to winning the Super Bowl in 1 year. 1 year. The Jaguars, as a franchise, can have that kind of success, maybe not in 1 year, but they can have that kind of success. And that kind of success, you see that coming in the first year. Even if it doesn't happen in the first year, you see it on the horizon in the first year, because you immediately, because of the culture that's built and the players who have bought into it, you see that arrow begin to go up almost immediately. It may not stay going up the whole season. It may have little tremors, and it's always a roller coaster ride. This is the NFL. But you know and you feel that there is that upside and it's coming. We just need to continue on the path we're on. Where do you think the Jaguars are going to go if they continue on the path that they're on right now? Nowhere. Nowhere, because everything that you want to know about the intangibles of your fucking franchise, you know them now. You have a coach who's a liar. You have a coach who's not accountable. He doesn't own it. And he throws and he shifts blame and he deflects and he speaks in literal nonsense to keep himself from looking bad. You know what you have. Can't tell you the last time I seen a head coach who's had those kind of traits lead a franchise to anything other than 2 and whatever. Because we're 2-10 right now, and I don't see it going much different. So, to wrap this whole thing up, personally, I feel like, if Shad Khan truly does give a shit about this franchise, which I don't doubt that he cares about the Jaguars. I just doubt that he understands in a nuanced way what is truly needed out of a head coach to be successful at this level. Urban Meyer doesn't have it. He has shown incompetence. He has shown that he is not loyal to the franchise. He chose to party rather than to fly back with his team after a loss that was actually a crucial point in which you could have positively affected this franchise in a way that would have turned the ship and corrected the ship and led to possibly more wins up to this point. He chose to stay in Ohio and fucking grind on chicks. He's shown you he's not loyal. He's shown you he ain't got no respect for himself or his family. He's shown you he don't give a damn about anybody's image except for his own. He's shown his coaches that. He's shown the players that. What more do you need to know to make the decision to get rid of him? There shouldn't be anything else, because if it was a player who exhibited these kinds of things, he would have been fired. He would have been fired in week 4. Player would have been cut in week 4 if these were the traits that they exhibited based on what you expected from them. And they showed you this kind of behavior, this kind of lack of accountability, this kind of deflection, this kind of nonsensical reasoning and logic. No, you would have been done with their ass. So why is he any different? Those national championships don't mean anything to the NFL. So why is he any different? Why is he being given the benefit of the doubt that he has shown on multiple occasions he does not deserve? Either he is too stupid or he is lying to us. It can't be both. Matter of fact, let me walk that back. It might be both. But either way, it's not going to work if that's the case. It's not going to work. He needs to be done. He needs to be done. He needs to be gone. And you're only doing a disservice to the franchise and to the fans. And it can get so bad. It can get so bad that the NFL will step in at some point. They ain't afraid to do that. And I'm pretty sure Jerry Jones ain't got no problem with owning half of another team and moving them to somewhere else to make some money. So if if Shad Khan is not, willing to take off the rose-colored glasses about Urban Meyer, the NFL will take them off for you at some point. So, that's going to be it for me, guys. I really do appreciate you all being here and listening to me kind of explain my perspective on this, because I honestly believe that, Shad Khan and the Jaguars are at a very crucial point right now. And if they don't make the right decision, it's going to be ugly. It's going to get substantially worse. Oh, we got a super chat here. Get to that real quick in a second. But it's going to get substantially worse for this franchise if Urban Meyer if they don't go ahead and cut their losses now. It was, it was Shad Khan's, it was his dream to have a guy like Urban Meyer. But now you've learned a lesson from this. Just because they're good in college does not mean anything about what they are worth on the NFL level. That does not factor in, and it shouldn't factor in to what you think they can bring to the NFL. Because again, once you dive under the top layer of Urban Meyer, you begin to realize that this is a guy who doesn't really know football, and he doesn't know how to handle this level of accountability in the NFL, because at the end of the day, his head will roll first. And he has already created a reputation for himself as someone who's not accountable and someone who is really aloof in what it is he wants to make this team and where he wants the direction of this team to head. So you've got to consider these things. We got a super chat here. Stephen Farmer, $5. He says, do you think Urban Meyer was wrong for calling out the wide receiver group? And what do you think about Marvin Jones leaving the building? Well, thank you for that $5 super chat, Stephen. Yeah, I do think it was wrong for him to publicly criticize a wide receivers group. That is for a new coach who doesn't have experience in the NFL. That's one of those things that you don't do that, because you're creating a rift where it's unnecessary to create one. You have a situation where you have now put a spotlight on a group of players who have bought into what your program is supposed to be about. And not only have you now put them in the crosshairs of the media, but you've also shown that you have, little in way of respect for what they're trying to accomplish with you. So that will create a level of resentment. And maybe when it's, first year guys or second year guys, maybe you don't get backlash from that. But when you have veterans who are, who have been in the NFL, who understand how this game works, they're not going to stand for that kind of disrespect. That is a disrespectful thing to do. And Marvin Jones, yes, I have no problem with him leaving. Because at the end of the day, if he really thinks that if he really is going to lay out if he's really going to put out the receivers group in that kind of way, then why should they owe him any loyalty at all? They don't owe him loyalty if he doesn't provide any towards them. So yeah, and then he got into a heated argument with Meyer in practice. Yeah, this is the NFL. This is the NFL. If you are going to disrespect your own players in that way, don't be surprised when it's reciprocated. Because again, this is their livelihood. You are not going to threaten their livelihood in a manner that is not becoming because you feel some kind of way. So I think at the end of the day, I think that if you're going to try and send a message as a player to rebut, as a rebuttal for what you view as a disrespectful way of handling a group of guys who are there trying to do their job as best they can, then that would be the way to handle it. You handle it on the field and you let them know how you feel, And that happens in the NFL more often than you think. But the difference here is that there's a lot of times a mutual respect between the coaches and the players, where even though you have that argument and you have that clashing of heads, there's still a cooling off period in a way that you guys can come to a resolution without there being bad blood. And I think that when you have a guy who doesn't have experience with that and who comes from an environment where he is given ultimate power and he is allowed to have bad blood with people, it doesn't work when you get to a level like the NFL. When you have that bad blood, it will spread through the team like a cancer, and it will eventually destroy that team. And this is something that now has boiled over, and we're seeing it destroy these Jaguars. So it's a good question there, and I appreciate you dropping that question, Steve. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this one. We've had a nice little run here, about close to 2.5 hours. But again, I do appreciate you guys. Please make sure you smash that like button if you haven't done so. Subscribe to my channel, Uche Nwaneri, the Observant Lineman, if you haven't done so already. We'll be back again Mondays. On Monday, we'll have a Lineman Life Live to kind of recap the weekend NFL football. Wednesday, we have our Tearmaker live stream for the preview into the next week of NFL football. And in that stream, I do that with former guard Justin Blaylock. I also do that with Urinating Tree and 5 Points videos, two big-time YouTube channels when it comes to the NFL. And I'm also on the Dumpster Fire with those guys on Tuesdays. So Monday through Wednesday, we're full steam ahead. And on Fridays, I usually do a casual stream. Didn't get to it yesterday. Had something come up, but definitely will use this one as kind of a makeup for that. But I will be back live at the regular time, Monday, 7 p.m., around 7:10 Eastern. If you haven't checked out any of my live streams at this point, do me a favor, come check us out. We are on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. And they're pretty fun live streams. So make sure you check us out. But until then, I appreciate you guys very much. Be a lot of NFL action going on tomorrow, and I will be on Twitter giving my reactions as that time goes. But I do appreciate you all, and I will catch you all on the next live stream. Hope everybody has a wonderful night. I will see y'all later.